So with the release of episode 24, which is the penultimate episode to season 1 of Spy Family, the viewers are now understanding what the story entails. For not only does it have the espionage and action that you expect from a spy story and the rip-roaring comedy, but you also get a tremendous amount of empathy and feelings from the relationship that the members of the family have. And no episode covers this much better than episode 24, for there is a tremendous amount of relationship development that you see from both of the stories that you see in episode 24. And why I value the anime so much is it really emphasizes the sentimental moments from the stories in this series. I enjoy the animated action that you see, as well as the color and the voice acting and the music. But the thing I really value about the anime is that it really takes the relationships of these characters to another level from the comic. And so episode 24 starts out with the dilemma that you saw in episode 23, which is the strong self-reflection that we see in Yor. Although she has always had a tremendous amount of self-doubt, it has never been to a level that may affect the whole relationship of the family. There was always somebody like Lloyd who was able to bring her out of her dilemma, but this time, her self-reflection is definitely getting to the point where it may affect the relationship between Yor and Lloyd. And what's interesting is Lloyd is oblivious of this until he finds out in episode 24 through the gossip of the neighbors that Yor is in this dark mood. And I find this very curious about Lloyd, because he is supposed to be the great agent Twilight who is so sensitive that he can notice people's expressions from really far away, and yet he becomes a complete blockhead when it comes to Yor. And it is part of the satire of this series, but it does make for a very curious situation. Because in episode 24, not only is he unaware of the situation until he finds out from somebody else, but the way he tries to resolve it is in a manner that you never would have expected. But I think it was the best choice for the author Tatsuya Endo to do, because Lloyd, as sensitive as he is, was a person that threw away all of his deep feelings so that he can become a proper cold agent. And to expect that his feelings will be able to easily come back would be uncharacteristic of that person. And so the way episode 24 was done, I thought was very appropriate, because it really showed Lloyd to still be that agent Twilight that conflicts with the persona that Lloyd is whenever he is with Yor. Now, why I find episode 24 to be so good with its sentimental feelings is because it's not just about the relationship between Yor and Lloyd, although that is the main focus of this episode, but you see various sentimental moments throughout this entire episode, even from the beginning when you see the really close relationship between Frankie and Anya. For there seems to be this really close friendship between the two, although Frankie is not willing to admit that, but I think he's found a bestie with Anya. And so their time together starts out this episode really well, and then it, of course, goes into the second part, which is Lloyd's attempt to help Yor overcome her dilemma. But the way Lloyd does it is the way Agent Twilight does it, which is a very cold, calculating method. He is going to basically try to strategize his way out of it rather than to sympathize his way out of it. And so he invites Yor to a date, and they go out to drink. And at that time, Lloyd tries to woo Yor by bringing her to this location for a romantic interlude. But from Yor's perspective, this is completely out of character from what Lloyd has been doing up till now. And she's worried that that is because he's eventually going to announce that they should separate. And so all of these tactics that Lloyd is doing is just making Yor feel even more uncomfortable. And because Lloyd doesn't get it, well, Yor has to solve her uncomfortable situation herself, and that results in the famous drinking scene that we see in this episode, and that, of course, turns on Yor's alternate persona. And this is when Lloyd finally realizes Yor's true feelings about him. And his response to that is not an act of romanticism, but he ends up being a player. Now, you have to understand, this is Agent Twilight we're talking about. And so we start understanding that as much as Lloyd can be the romantic individual, half the time it's a front. He is, after all, the man of 1,000 faces, and because of that, he could be a man of 1,000 personas, including one that is portrayed to be extremely romantic. And so, of all the things Lloyd does to try to help Yor out, he ends up playing on her using his tactics that he typically did to other women while he was Agent Twilight. And of course, being Yor, this ends up in a hilarious situation where Lloyd receives probably one of the most notable uppercuts we have ever seen in anime. And Lloyd, yeah, dude, you deserve that one. Yeah, what the heck were you thinking using an act to try to resolve your wife's problems? Especially when her problem is all about her insecurities about their relationship. And of course, after the kick, Lloyd still doesn't get it because he ends up thinking that Yor is absolutely not interested in him after that. And that's when you do realize, once again, Agent Twilight used to be a really good womanizer, but not because he had a level of empathy and charisma, but because he systematically learned how to play out relationships. Whether he felt them or not was immaterial. He just went through the steps to do so, and you can see it here. He's using formulistic moments to try to figure out what the relationship is between him and Yor, rather than to use his heart. But with all that said, and all that comedy going on, the situation that happens after that is very heartwarming. Because after Lloyd blacks out, he wakes up in the park hearing a lullaby that his mother used to sing. And that opens up his feelings once again due to the love that he had towards his mother. And when he notices that it is Yor that's singing the lullaby, that feeling of warmth is realized by Lloyd with regards to Yor. And so the discussion that goes on after this is extremely heartwarming about how Lloyd felt about his mother and how Yor is doing the same protection and love that she gives to Anya. And from that, Lloyd reassures Yor that she is a good mother and a good wife, and there would be no reason for him to think otherwise. And as much as we saw that he was playing Yor in the beginning, this part of his conversation comes from the heart. And so, once again, I do enjoy the anime because the way it's portrayed with the music, with the voice acting, it does it really, really well. Even the scene with regards to his vision of his time with his mother is much more emphasized in the anime than it was in the manga. And all of these heartwarming moments really show just how strong the anime is in portraying the wholesome relationship that this family has. And I would really like to give kudos to Kazuhiro Furuhashi, the director of Spy Family anime, in his ability to emphasize these really strong feelings. Because not only do we get them in this part of the story, but we also get them in the next one, which is, of course, the Volganya chapter. And the Volganya chapter in general is a relatively cute and hilarious moment because most of it revolves around Becky taking Anya to go fashion shopping, and it is their quality time together that we see. And I have to say, Kato Emiri, who is the voice actor for Becky, did a wonderful job here. And I found it quite cute because in certain moments, Becky got so enthralled with Anya that it really gave me Saikawa Riko vibes in this particular story. For anybody who is curious, just go see Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. But in any case, she did a really good job in really portraying just how important a friend Becky is to Anya, and vice versa. And even the role of Martha, which I've always loved as a character in the comic, was really well portrayed in the anime. Tsuda Shoko, the voice actress for Martha, did a really good job in portraying her the way I expected her to be voiced. A commenter in one of my previous videos made a really nice analogy in saying that Martha to Becky is what Alfred is to Bruce Wayne. And I agree with that commenter with regards to this. Martha is a very good character, and I really like the way she was portrayed here as being a very caring guardian to Becky. And through her, we get to see Becky's backstory, and the backstory brings in a tremendous amount of sentiment to this part of the story, because we realize that not only is Becky important to Anya, but just how important Anya was to Becky, because as much as Becky pretends to be a very self-confident individual, her strong will makes it difficult for her to make friends, and throughout her entire time, because of that, she had no friends. And because of Becky's strong will, she pretended that she never cared about friends until she met Anya. And you could tell through Martha's backstory just how important Anya was to Becky, and just how much Martha appreciated Anya's friendship to Becky. And so this whole episode really portrayed human relationship really well, not just from Lloyd and Yor, but throughout this entire episode, many different characters and the relationships they had amongst each other. And so episode 24 turns out to be a really good episode for helping wrap up the first season. We'll only have one more episode after this, and once I see it, I'll bring out another video. But I am very happy the way this anime has gone so far, and because of that, I really look forward to what will be coming out in the second season. Now, that next episode, well, we know from the trailer that it corresponds to episodes 37 and 38 in the comic. And if I go by what I saw in the comic, this should be a very milestone episode because of the meeting of a certain individual. And as much as it is a milestone episode, what's curious is that, at least from the comic, it ended up opening more questions than it did answers. And it made one curious about how the mission will continue to move forward based upon what you saw in this episode. And so from an anime's perspective, I think this is a perfect episode to end this series because it does leave people wanting to see what goes on in the next season. And so once I watch episode 25, I'll bring out another video and I'll go into further discussions about that. But this is the episode 24 discussion for Spy Family. If you saw it, what you think about it, if you could leave your comments, I would greatly appreciate it. And until the next episode, happy anime watching, and as always, Jaya, nice day everyone.